talk a little bit more about Boris and Tory corruption. It was Max Hastings who gave this amazing interview about Boris Johnson, who he'd known and worked with since the 80s, and some of the quotes they're just golden. His premiership will almost certainly reveal a contempt for rules, precedent, order and stability, Hastings said. It seems he cares for no interest save his own gratification and fame. His grave vice is cowardice, reflected in a willingness to tell any audience whatever he thinks most likely to please. Any of this sounding familiar, by the way? Almost the only people who think Johnson a nice guy are those who do not know him. So said Max. Amazing, really. That last line is a killer, but might explain why so few of you watching apparently give a toss about the return of Tory corruption. According to the New York Times, there was £11 billion worth of contracts had gone out on PPE equipment. We've got the redecoration of the flat, and no one cares, John. What do you say to that?
Well, the question is, do they or don't they? You know, and the very fact the BBC saying nobody cares, I think there's an apathy now because I think people feel that there are just too many problems and we can't sort anything out. And I think that's why they take refuge in trivia. I think people got a little too frightened about everything that's going wrong, and so they just stick their heads in the sand. I think that's what's going on. At the same time, you know, I tweet a bit, and I have theoretically, 5.7 million people following. And if I tweet a good joke like I did this morning about my freedom being infringed by traffic lights, I get about 10,000, 15 or even 20,000 people. But when I recommended a book recently, I think about 8 people loved it. If you recommend a serious book, I don't think this generation is as serious in the old-fashioned sense of the word as the older generations were. I think there was a moment when it was thought a good thing to be to have general knowledge, to have some idea of what the biggest countries are and what their population is and what the religion is and the principal religion is.
It doesn't help though, John, does it? It doesn't help having BBC News at 6 o'clock and ITV News at 6:30, both running reports yesterday saying no one was interested. They went out and they did Vox Pops. I don't know how long the reporter was on the street, maybe 15 minutes, maybe 2 hours.
Yes, but Matt, hang on a moment. Maybe it's true. It isn't true for us, and it probably isn't true for anyone watching this program, but maybe there is a general lack of interest. And I think it's probably because, you know, Britain used to be, for all its fault, a basically middle or lower middle class society. And now it's a tabloid society. We only have to look at the papers. It's not just that they're nasty and inaccurate and shameless. They're constantly trivial. And that seems to be what people gravitate towards.
Okay, just last point on this though, John, and on the issue of the sort of the press, I used to sort of, I think I still believe broadly that the public gets the kind of press that they deserve. It's a permanent chicken and egg scenario. It just seems too simplistic to think that some random Australian billionaire can come over here and just change how we perceive our news. There must have been a demand from within, from the people.
Well, there was a time when people tried to sort of keep standards up and talk about quality when they were talking about television programs, for example. People would say that's a quality program, and even if it didn't get a very big viewing figure, the people in charge would keep it on. You won't believe this, but when we were doing Monty Python 69, 70, 71, we didn't know the size of the viewing audience. It was never talked about. It was just people said it was good, and that was enough. But now everything, because it's run entirely for the benefit of rich people to make them even richer, what happens now is that everything gets subordinated to what gets the most readers and the most clicks. And if that's going to happen, inevitably standards are going to be dragged down.
Would you agree
so
with that,
I think
Tom?
it's a two-way thing. It's partly what they're given, but it's also what people slip into most easily when they're feeling lazy.
Thanks for watching that clip. You can find lots more of our work on social media, and do support us by becoming a member on YouTube or supporter on Patreon.